Chapter 3 tells the story of Daniel's 3 companions who refuse to worship a giant gold statue, and they get themselves thrown into a fiery furnace. When they emerge unscathed, the king is greatly impressed, and so he acknowledges the God of Israel. In chapter 4, there's a second dream. It's interpreted by Daniel as a sign that Nebuchadnezzar will be struck down 7 times. He's going to lose his reason. He's going to lose his throne until he realizes that God is the source of all divine and human power. And when this, in fact, comes to pass, Nebuchadnezzar seems to suffer a fit of insanity that drives him from society. The king then praises the God Most High as the universal king. In chapter 5, Daniel's enemies at court trick the Median king now, Darius, so we're moving to different kings. They trick him into issuing an edict against those who pray to anyone but the king. This is a problem for Daniel. Daniel violates the edict, of course, and he's arrested and he's thrown into a den of lions. But he emerges unharmed. And the result is, again, that the foreign king, in this case Darius now, recognizes the supremacy of Yahweh and orders all in his kingdom to revere the Jewish God. There is, of course, no historical merit to these stories of Babylonian and Persian kings acknowledging or adopting the God of the Jews who lived in exile among them. These stories seem to give voice to the hope or the fantasy that a cruel and impious monarch might be taught humility by Yahweh. They also provide a model for life in the diaspora. Jews can live in the Gentile world, but they must never forget God and his laws. And then we move into the second half of the book of Daniel, chapters 7 to 12. As we move into this part of Daniel, we switch from the third person into the first person. So Daniel 7 to 12 is written in the first person, and it's fully apocalyptic. And here Daniel has a series of visions and dreams that are interpreted for him by an angel. And again, that's a classic feature of the apocalyptic genre. These visions, again, survey ancient Near Eastern history from the 6th to the 2nd centuries. Chapter 7, again, represents the succession of kingdoms, the Babylonian, the Median, the Persian, the Macedonian empires, but this time as beasts. So you have a lion, a bear, a winged leopard, and an ogre. The ogre has horns, and the horns of this ogre then represent these 2 lesser Hellenistic kingdoms, the Ptolemies of Egypt and the Seleucids of Syria. The boastful little horn is the Syrian king, Antiochus Epiphanes himself. In a second vision, the Ancient of Days, this is the term that's used, seems to be God in a white robe and a beard, seated on a fiery chariot throne. But the Ancient of Days confers glory and kingship on one like a son of man. Now in Daniel, this phrase, the son of man, which generally means mortal as opposed to divine in the Bible. But in Daniel, the phrase seems to refer to a figure that's in human form, but more than a human. Probably an angel like Michael or Gabriel. Both of them are represented as leaders against the forces of Persia and Greece. And this figure establishes an everlasting kingdom to replace the bestial kingdoms that have preceded it. So the Son of Man overwhelms the little horn, Antiochus, who is said to be making war on saints. That's a code for loyal Jews, who is said to have been trying to change their law and abolish their religion. And we know that these were parts of the persecution in 167 to 164 by Antiochus. He tried to stop worship in the sanctuary and so on.